إله إلا الله والله أكبر سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر.
Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. Thank you everyone for joining us, and my apologies again for joining in late. I had some technical difficulties. So this is the first of the 9 webinar series that we're hoping to do to reflect together on these blessed days and nights. These blessed days and nights have messages that are of profound significance. And instead of each one of us doing it on her own, whether through fasting, reading Quran, acts of worship, and other charity, and so forth, we thought of getting together so that we could remind each other of what's really important. So this is a focus on foundational concepts. We hope to have a discussion. We're going to have 1 or 2 presenters each day, and Dr. Yamina will be making comments, and I'll do my best to discuss what's being shared, whether in the chat box or in person. We encourage you to do it in person via sound, via unmuting yourself, and via camera. And please share this with your friends. We hope to have a rewarding discussion for everyone. So let me introduce our first presenter, Dr. Sawsan. Are you around? Our first presenter is Professor Sawsan Abbadi. She's going to discuss Ibrahim was an ummah. How Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, was an ummah, which means nation, a nation. Professor Sawsan Abbadi is the director of the Arabic Language and Culture program at Loyola University in Chicago. She holds a doctorate of education in teacher education and curriculum studies with a focus on language, literacy, and culture from the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Welcome, Professor Sawsan Abbadi. The floor is yours. Professor Sawsan is going to give us a short presentation, and then we're going to have a live discussion with her and with Dr. Yamina Buganaya. Go ahead, Sawsan, the floor is yours.
Habibti, thank you so much, and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And thank you so much, Maha, for the coordination and arrangement, and also for the very formal and very polite introduction. Thank you so much, dearest Maha. I'm so much used, by the way, of just going by Sawsan, so it really took me by surprise for somebody to address me more formally than that. But thank you so much, dearest Maha. I appreciate it. Thanks for everyone as well, and I'm happy to recognize some familiar names and new ones as well. And it's always a pleasure being in groups with Dr. Yamina, long-time friend, family, and much more than that. The same goes with many of the people that I recognize here. So I was asked to talk in less than 7 minutes, so I'm trying to go with 5 minutes on a topic related to Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. And naturally, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam was given multiple nicknames mentioned in the Quran as well as in the Seerah that makes him a special personality, with the focus that in Islam we do not necessarily bring the stories to talk about the Prophet per se, but rather on faith vignettes that we relate to, and those prophets being role modeling the way for us, whether it's a road of exploration or discovery or standing up after a failure, etc. So there is so much of trials and triumphs around the story of prophets that makes us feel more welcoming to our vulnerabilities, and thus through that reaching Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us that He tells the Prophet Muhammad the stories of other prophets so that مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ, so that your heart is held steadfast, tight on the message, and that applies to us as well. So Prophet Ibrahim is known to be one of those who introduces us to the deep faith values as results of work, not as inherited. So it's not an issue of he's a good prophet because his father was a good prophet, or he was in a family of good prophets, but rather things that he does that makes him reach elevated status. And one of those is that big reference to him as Ummah. And Ummah in Arabic carries varieties of meanings. So on once, it could mean the group. So him representing in his actions, in his work, in his attributes, what could be done by a group, and or it in itself is a multitude of great attributes that make him reach a high status. But Ummah also carries other meanings, from time frame to follower of a prophet to even a smaller group, as in stories mentioned in the Quran. So then why was he the nation? Why not other prophets? Why not Adam, the first prophet? Why not Noah? And that makes us think of a very basic element that Ibrahim kept somehow trying to exemplify for us over and over in all his vignettes mentioned in the Quran, which is recognizing the God, the Ilah, not just the Rabb, because everyone, every creation has a share of rububiyyah, of Rabb, of the nurturer, whether we are believers or not, whether we are animals or plants. Everybody has a Rabb. But an Ilah, that's where belief comes in. So if we recall the ayah that says, Inna Ibrahim kana ummatan, a nation, and towards the end of the ayah, it says, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. So that's where Ibrahim comes in a big display of defining the concept of shirk. So if we recall him, Ibrahim, as the boy being thrown in hellfire. I'm sorry, not the hellfire, the hellfire of the Persian, not the actual hellfire. And as he's being thrown, Angel Jibril comes to him and he says, Alaka haja, do you have any need? Is there a request? Is there anything I could do for you? And as a youngster, Ibrahim responds, Amma ilayka fala, to you, from you directly, the angel, no. So here the concept is, I mean, surely if I am being thrown in a fire, I would need anybody. Please just get me out of there. But Ibrahim wanted to focus on a particular thing. Is the help coming from Angel Jibril or from someone else? So if we think of the story, I mean, the scenario could have gone through multitude of options. So let's assume the story was saving Ibrahim from being burned. I'm sure God could have created different scenarios to end the story. Maybe nobody would have been able to capture Ibrahim from the beginning, and so he wouldn't be even having to go through that. Maybe God would have sent rain and it would just, put off the whole fire and he would be saved. Maybe so a variety of reasons, or I'll have to say ways Allah could have saved Ibrahim, but no, it has to be done in a particular way. And that's where Ibrahim's answer comes to Jibril. It's not you, it's the one who created the fire is the one who could help me. So at a young age, Ibrahim was able to realize that the creator can manipulate the attributes of its creation. And therefore he knew what is sabab, a reason, and what is musabbib, the causer, the one who makes things happen. And as such was Ibrahim through different vignettes in his life with that challenge, with that test. Do you know the real cause from the causer? And so who do we reach for at such times? So to me, you know, I'm just going to conclude with my time limit that Ibrahim is such a prophet who helps us see how deeds, not heredity of actions, is what made him an imam. And those deeds point exclusively to knowing the ilah, not just the Rabb. We have to see him as the ilah, then we will enjoy him as a Rabb among other attributes as well. And that opens up other topics of shirk, etc. That is a main focus during those 10 days, inshallah. Thank you so much, Maha, and everybody else. And please forgive me if I have brought in anything that was not as clear or something that I have misinterpreted out of my own understanding. Thank you, and salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Sawsan. And again, thanks everybody for joining in. We heard from Dr. Sawsan about Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, how he was a nation, he was an ummah, as stated in the Quran, and how he recognized the difference between a cause and effect, a causer and what was caused, a sabab and a musabbib. And maybe we should open it up for discussion what this means for us. Does it make a difference to differentiate between a cause and a symptom, or the existence of something and the reason for its existence? I know it's the first day usually gets some glitches, but we encourage you having your cameras on as well, especially when you speak. So please feel free to unmute yourselves and to participate in the discussion. How important is this question that Professor Sawsan Abbadi raised regarding Prophet Ibrahim? How is it relevant to us now? Where are we clear and where are we confused about the cause and the effect? I think I heard somebody was going to say something. Please go ahead.
Can I add one little comment if nobody is talking? Maha?
Yes, please. Yes.
I was gonna say, to me personally, it's not necessarily knowing the information, it's really applying it, and how much do I apply it throughout the situations, whether the
Give
good
examples.
So when I am in a plight, what is my natural instinct gonna do? Where do I do for? Who do I cry for first? And I don't want to say, sometimes we do reflect and figure out the equation, but there are easier situations. Sometimes the happier ones, I find myself easier to go. Sometimes it's the sad ones that take me first to go. So it depends. But again, I just want to throw in there the difference between an information, knowing it, and applying it. And I'm going to stop it here.
It's good to share examples as well, because we learn from each other's experiences. I learn a lot from other people's personal experiences, actually. And sometimes I feel when I hear about somebody else's personal experience, sometimes I feel it's a direct message of learning for me to try and take this as something that's applicable to me personally. Dr. Yamina, why is it important and how is it relevant to distinguish between the cause and the effect?
Assalamu alaikum.
So,
actually, I am not quite sure what, if I understood what Sawsan was referring to when she talked about sabab and musabbib. So the musabbib is the causer of the cause, and sabab is cause. In the world, things around us always happen with an apparent cause. I call it apparent because we call it cause, but does it really cause what's going on? That's something different. A very simple example that's also like water, because it's mentioned in the Quran so many times. So in the water, it seems like if you water a plant that is wilting, it's revived. So we think of it as a cause of the effect, the result, which is the revival. Now, this is not true thinking or reflecting. This is taking things at face value. This is not questioning what's going on. So in this paradigm, in this way of being, there is no concept of musabbib, the causer of causes, until we hear about it. Now, once we hear about it, what I'm understanding from, if I understood right, from Sawsan, it's one thing to say, okay, water is giving life to this plant, but since all this is between brackets, it's untold, we don't say it, but we act as if that's the assumption. So the implicit assumption is, but I know that God is the causer of causes because he's the one who creates water and he's the one who is giving the water this property. In this is a claim, and it does not, personally, it does not change my life. It does not transform anything. It does not increase my iman. It does not make me closer to God. It's just a claim. In order for me to truly be able to perceive and witness the musabbib al-asbab, the true causer, the only causer, then I have to start questioning what I mean by cause. Actually, it's not causing anything. It's the water and the plant and the revival of the plant and the relationship between them are all created at once. And so when I start asking the question and questioning, does water, can it have this power, knowledge, consciousness, any attributes needed to come up with this result? The answer is no. And so you say, how is it a cause of anything then? And we are told in the Quran, things cannot create anything because they themselves are being created. Water itself is being created. It does not have knowledge. It doesn't have power. It does not have life in the very beginning, even at a very superficial level. So when we start consciously asking this question, we realize that what we call cause and effect, and especially the relationship between them, is actually, the Quran never calls them cause and effect, calls them ayat, signs. Means they indicate something beyond themselves, they signify something beyond themselves, they make the true causer, the true giver of life, the true reviver, they make him known with his beautiful names and attributes. So that's what comes to my mind. And when I do ask this question, and I don't take any cause effect for granted, that is when I start seeing their true reality, which is that of ayah. If there is the illusion of cause and effect being related horizontally, there is no way to know God with his beautiful names. God will remain a dogma, a claim, and there is no way to cultivate our iman and live in ihsan, in the presence of God here and now.
Thank you, Dr. Yamina. I realized I should introduce you to, because we have new friends joining us. And it's I want to introduce you to my very good friend and mentor, Dr. Yamina Bugunaya. She's the director of Receiving Noor, a nonprofit educational organization dedicated to empowerment and enrichment through Quranic spirituality. Yamina transitioned from her position as Associate Professor of Arabic and Islamic Studies in order to commit to this project. In addition to extensive training in Islamic studies, both in traditional and academic settings, Yamina also holds a PhD in theoretical quantum physics. She has published extensively in several languages on Islam, especially on Quranic studies, Islamic spirituality, and the relationship between religion and science. As part of her current position, she has been offering online Quranic classes, as well as extensive Quran workshops and spiritual retreats. Alhamdulillah that we have amongst us such a sophisticated and profound Quran scholar who understands both that realm, the spiritual realm, and the realm of life and the struggles that we face in life. So thank you, everyone. It's inshallah we will learn and expand our horizons with Dr. Yamina and with all of you. So Dr. Yamina and we are reflecting on the example of Prophet Ibrahim. And thanks to Dr. Sawsan Abbadi, who gave us a presentation on Ibrahim, peace be upon him, being an ummah, being a nation on his own, that he crystallized the elements of a nation. Where do we step back to reflect? There are so many lessons going on. Dr. Yamina, where do we start? Where do we need to step back after clarifying the difference between the causer and what's caused, and how this influences our understanding of our own lives and our management of our own selves?
Sorry, you mean how our understanding of cause, effect, and the true causer?
No, I'm saying after you've clarified the difference, how do we take this in light of the season we're experiencing? The 9 days of the Hijjah are very blessed nights and days that invite us to reflect on many significant foundational concepts in life, in the hereafter as well. So how do we relate this? How is this relevant to what we're experiencing in our personal lives, as well in our attempt to understand these big concepts?
So there are many levels, especially actually because they are all interconnected. It's one whole, and when we are familiar, we start, because we're familiar with the connections, then it becomes easier. But in the beginning, it seems like they are levels, and it takes a while to start seeing that all these levels are actually all related to one thing. From the outside, the outer perspective, it's directly, this is the gist actually of shirk versus tawheed. Now, tawheed is to realize that there is only one single source of being, of existence, of creating, and one single source of goodness and what we call the beautiful names of God. Shirk is when, without realizing, when we don't have this, when this, what I said, tawheed, usually is approached as a dogma, but it's actually a reality in the sense that it is the fact in life. When we are not familiar with this reality, I will explain why we are not familiar with this reality. Then we find ourselves by default in shirk. Shirk is when we are not aware of this, and therefore by default, without necessarily intending it, we start attributing those beautiful attributes, divine names of God, to other things. For instance, it seems to us when we have that superficial, mindless, ghafla, heedless perception of the world, it seems that water is related to giving life to the plant and to my life too. And you can, when I say water, you can add air, food, and etc. So these shirk here is that I am attributing, without realizing, some attributes, some qualities to water that it does not have and it does not claim to have. I am attributing it to it by default, by not thinking, by not consciously ascribing, consciously seeing that there is a giving of life going on here, and asking who the true possessor is. So by default, I find myself in shirk. Now, I said from the outer perspective, it looks like this, but what's going on inside, it's not like what happened to me, like I found myself there and I started, I am not responsible for this because I just find myself there. How is it, well, let's ask it in another way. How is it that even when I am told again and again about tawheed, even when I am told that, look carefully, there is only one giver of life, these things that you are talking about can't give life, these causes and effects, how come I keep forgetting? And I say, what can I do? I keep forgetting. Why do we forget? But here I'm saying forget if and when I learned what tawheed is, because most of us may not have learned. They learned the definition, but they never learned how to practice it in life.
Okay, let's pause here, please, because this is an important question. Can you reiterate this question? And I invite all of us to think of this question, because this is not a lecture series, friends. We are trying to imbibe the questions and the answers, if there are answers, but in my opinion, the questions are more important sometimes than the answers, because if we are struck by a question, it sets us on a momentum to explore and to find out more and to open ourselves in the trajectory of our lives to find more meaning. So it's not a direct, shallow relationship, Q and A. It's more of a conversation and a discussion and an exploration, that the more we have this in ourselves and the longer we take, the more profound and meaningful outcome we would get. So could you repeat this question, Yamina, and let's see if anybody has a comment, feel free to jump in regarding the question itself. Again, it's not, our interest is not, it's not a quiz. Nothing is a quiz, actually. It's not a quiz. It's a sincere exploration. This is a sincere attempt for ourselves to find what is meaningful and what is truthful to ourselves in our lives and in the hereafter. So what is the question again, Yamina?
You mean, why do we forget?
Yes, you said despite this. Can you repeat the despite that this has been repeated in the Quran? Please go ahead.
If I have been taught how to practice questioning my perception of the world, questioning cause and effect in order to find the true causer with his beautiful names, then why do I forget? It could be, why did I say this? Because it could be that I'm not forgetting. I actually never learned who God is. I never learned how to have access to his beautiful names. I am just claiming and repeating because that's how I've been told. You're Muslim, you believe in the Quran. In the Quran, it says God has these attributes, and so I'm repeating them. And so I repeat them as two different sets. I have my perception of the world where I see that water is giving life, but I say, it looks like this, but I know that's at some level, I don't know where, there is some mystery. Actually, God is the giver of life. And there is no clear bridge between the two, although in the Quran it's clear. But if I have not learned this, then it's not that I am forgetting. I actually never had access to it. But if I had access and I learned to witness, I learned to perform the Shahada in the world and see that if there is no God, but God means there is no giver of life except God. So how come still I feel that my heart is still attached to water, as if it's somehow related to the giving? It is a source of life, although I can't say it because it would be in conflict with what I claim, but that's how it feels. My intuition tells me that, because it has not been Iman reflection, I have not been trained in that. So if I have been trained, why do we still forget?
Why do we still forget?
That it's God who created everything.
Let us think about this for a second, and whenever it's the right time, Dr. Yamina, please cue me if this is a time to do a breathing tafakkur. Okay.
After this, we can do that.
Okay.
Let's please share. Why do you think you forget?
I have a theory. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Asmaa. This is my first time joining the the meeting. Thank you so much for inviting me. I have a theory about why do we forget. We as Muslims, we all been told and we learned since we were little from our parents and also from our Islamic schooling, since we've been going since we were little kids. That's applied to me personally. I don't know if you guys attend Islamic school when you were kids, but I did. That everything that we see, it's created by God, the one and only, the creator of all. And that's just in our mind, but still we do forget. And the reason is the influence of science and the influence of the media that always try to manipulate that everything is created with has a cause, and there is no like magnificent power beside that 1 + 1 is equal to. And constant you know how science always manipulate these ideas and these opinions and these theories they come up with almost every year, that you know you start to questioning your belief, what you know, what is true, is it truly true? And then when you have doubt, then you keep forgetting that there's only one who create everything, and everything works the way it is because God commanded it to work that the way it is. But science always come in between to manipulate the idea, that beliefs and the faith. Since science it's majority of science are anti-religion, anti-belief, God believing theories. That's my theory. So yeah.
You're in the right place, Sister Asmaa Elbad, because we have some scientists here and we have some physicians. And Dr. Yamina has a PhD in quantum theoretical physics. So I think you're in the right place to share this theory of yours. Thank you for sharing it. Dr. Yamina, and anyone else, please feel free.
If there is anyone else, let's take anyone else and then we'll get back to this.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Amina. So I don't really have a theory, but what I was trying to understand when you know, when Dr. Amina was saying that you know, we say we're Muslims, like when you're born Muslim and you're taught whatever in Sunday school and you're taught whatever at home, looking for a deeper meaning is just not part of everyday life or in families. Like we don't look for deeper meanings of anything. Even knowing the 99 names of Allah, I can recite them all, but you know, what does each name stand for, and what does it mean? You know, so I guess my whole thing is like, we know the superficial Islam, like just the high level. We don't know anything. We don't try to go deeper meaning, because deeper would mean I have to change, and I don't want to change.
Why not, Samina? If
Yeah,
deeper,
go ahead.
This is something important, because
Yeah.
now you're relating what we've learned, or what some of us have learned, with the effect of that directly in our lives. You said if we connect to the deeper meaning, then we might have to change, but we don't want to change. So may I ask you, I don't mean you personally, why are you resistant to change? I'm saying, why don't we want to introduce, why don't we want to welcome positive change in our lives? What does that resistance do for us?
Yeah. So for me, I understand it as any change is bad, you know, like that. This is how I understand it. Like we don't know at the time that, you know, these deeper meanings will bring us to an understanding, to inner peace. We don't understand all of that. We say, okay, my life is going good. You know, I have a job, I have food, I have kids, whatever it is, you know, I have a house. So let's just stick with that. Why open up something that could, like, you know, make me, I guess, understand or even or even spend time on knowing. Even that is one thing that people don't have. So I think a lot of people are just kind of happy with knowing just the basics of Islam, you know. So I think
totally agree with the Samina, and that's not only us Muslims, just as human beings, we're afraid of the unknown, and although that we're gonna learn something new, we're afraid what we're learning and what's waiting for us and what we need to do about it. So sometimes being ignorant, it's like give us this like comfort and peaceful life to just keep going than knowing something that it may change your whole life upside down, and then you have to do something about it when you're not ready. And we're never ready for anything major in our lives. We prefer, as human beings, a part of our nature, we prefer things that are easy and unchallenging. We literally we prefer to close an eye, keep one eye open, because it's easier that way than we know there is God, and we know everything. Like the Quran, we have been reading Quran since I was a little kid. I know, but like we're not ready to go further in the deep meanings of it, because we might find out that everything we've been doing so far is 100% wrong, and we are in trouble. And we're in trouble, we're not ready to fix it. Do you get my meaning?
Yes.
So as a human being, we are weak deep inside, and we've been told in the Quran, and even the Prophet ﷺ said we are weak. And the weakness comes from our hearts. You have to strengthen our hearts, you have to strengthen our iman in order for us to be able to move forward or to take any challenge. Again, the Prophet ﷺ was not afraid of poverty, of not at all. He welcomed poverty. He loved being poor. He didn't mind it at all, because it helps him focus in God alone and nothing else. But we're weak. We cannot let go of things. We cannot just be having nothing, just God. You know what I mean? That's not enough for us as a human being, especially with our mentality today and how the world is going and how materialistic we become. And that way, everybody not willing to give up anything, even though for the sake of Allah. We proclaim we love God, we're there, we acknowledge it, we're doing our best, but still we're not ready to give up anything. Compared to Prophet ﷺ and his companions, they give up everything they have just for the love of God.
Thank you so much, Sister Asmaa, for being candid and honest and sharing these beliefs and thoughts. The good the good news is that actually you don't give up anything to be with God. You gain everything, but inshallah,
That's the whole thing.
Yes, this is the misunderstanding.
That's the big misunderstanding. We don't know who God is.
Right.
Because it's not just God. When you have God, you have everything.
But thank you.
Yeah.
You see, Amina, thank you. Sometimes not only do we forget the oneness of God and the meaning of Tawheed, but we also actually forget where our obstacles are and what stands in between ourselves and God. So with you and Samina bringing this up, we're reminded of where some of this resistance and some of this misunderstanding comes on of, because of course, if we're under the false impression that we need to give up what we have, who wants to give up anything? It feels burdenous. But the truth is that it's the opposite.
There is actually something to give up, but it's different. And both Samina and Asmaa put like their finger on the underlying cause of all this forgetfulness and things are symptoms.
And Sister Tasniya has a comment. Feel free to speak it, Sister Tasniya, unless you want me to read it. And our nice host, Sister Zahra, please feel free as well to read comments from the chat box.
I wanted to say, if I can.
Yes, please.
This is Iman. I think so. I agree that the reason why we forget is lack of practice or fear of change. And then I was thinking maybe also especially for mothers or people who have to take care of other relationships, that sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to do what's best for us, to take out the time to practice new habits and to practice new habits instead, that are going to bring us closer to Allah, instead of always taking care of others, our mothers and our husbands and our kids and so on.
That's right. That's very true. But alhamdulillah that by learning how to connect to Allah in a more correct way, the way Allah wants us to know Him, it might actually help us to take care of ourselves and of our children and whoever we need to take care of. This is a very good point, Sister Iman Zinhom. Thank you for
Can I
bringing
say
this.
something, Maha honey?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I just kind of started feeling, and it could be just me, having a lots of aurora of guilt feelings and negative things, and I'm just trying to say something. I don't know, is it just me or what? But I really want to make sure, at least to me, that I'm trying to differentiate between the fact that I do know the causer of the causer all the time. It's just that sometimes I do not know properly how to reach out for him at certain situation, versus not knowing the causer of things, and that's a different kind of ghafla. So as if here, I really want to make sure we're filtering these two levels, so we don't feel like we're way so bad, because this may not be really the situation. Being busy with life has been something even at the time of Sahaba, at the time of the Prophet. And in fact, they did go to the Prophet and they said, you know, when we are with you, we feel as if we are with angels, and then we go back being busy with life and work and kids, and, you know, we feel as if we're less, you know, less elevated. And he said, had you been with me, or the way you feel with me has been the way you also do or continue to do internally, deep, etc., you would have been walking with angels or something of the sort. And I'm sorry, I missed, I can't remember exactly the Arabic. But the point is, being busy does not make us, or should not, let's say, make us forget the main point of Tawheed. And how do I see God even in my work, in my business, in my cleaning, in my teaching, in my dealing with the kids, in etc.
So we back to the first question. Why do you forget?
Okay, so I'll stop here. I just when I started feeling, everybody's feeling so guilty, and I'm like, gosh, how bad are we? So that's all what I'm gonna say now, and leave it back.
But there is a difference between guilt and just seeing something for what it is. If I'm confused about something and I speak about it, it's actually better to speak about the confusion.
Oh,
So
I agree with you. Sure,
yeah.
Maha, sure. But it could be, I'm saying what some of us may feel to be negative is just a matter of these two filters that I said. So where do we fall in these two different equations, in two different matters? And that will decide for us what is the road of exploration, reflecting, the work to be done, etc.
Right.
So it doesn't feel like all our life is gone for nothing. As
no,
if,
we're building.
That's all what I want to just jokingly, quote unquote, say it.
You're right, Sawsan. We are building. We are not building something good and something rewarding and something nourishing. We're not destroying our souls. We're building.
Exactly.
We're building and filling. We're filling and filling.
Inshallah.
Part of the building. Let's from time to time stop and give some answers, so we don't just go on.
Okay, there's one sister. There are two people. One sister has to leave, so we will hear her, and then there is Sister Tasniya who wrote a comment, and then we will listen to Dr. Yamina and try to weave some of these questions and answers. Sister Afnan, do you want to speak about the point you wanted to mention?
Assalamualaikum. No, sorry. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I just sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you guys. I was just like writing down the whole message. I don't have to speak or anything, so you can move on to the next sister's message. I'm almost done writing down the message, so I think it's like pointless for me to have to repeat it, inshallah. But you can move on to the next sister, and you get the chance to read the message. It was just like a little comment, I wanted to add on. But yeah, you can.
Please go ahead, Sister Afnan. Would like to hear you.
Okay, then I might as well. No, but I was just going on. I really like the comment that Sister Asma, I believe, had mentioned regarding just how we don't like to change. I think that isn't necessarily the case. I feel like we as human beings, if we find a reason to change, we will definitely, most definitely change. Like that's why you find people who are always on the path of learning different religions, are always looking to change from all different like aspects. But I think what we truly lack is that motivation to change. I think unfortunately it could be a sign of like the day of judgment and the world. But nowadays, uh, within like even in the whole world, you know, people lack religious interest, and we don't have that same interest in religion as a society anymore. And just even like as a just like as a whole humanity, I think we're moving away from religion. And I think, you know, if we have community type friends, like alhamdulillah, our community is very, very closely knit and everything. But once we get out of the community and you're constantly facing society and constantly facing the whole like shift away from religion, and we're constantly being like told subconsciously that, you know, religion doesn't I don't know, doesn't matter anymore. I think nowadays, I don't know if this is making any sense, but like, I don't know,
Sure.
even if, like listening on TV or just movies. I remember we were just like recently watching a movie and they'd make side comments just about how, you know, like religion is the old fashioned and everything. So I think just like by us constantly always getting bombarded with all these little like messages, it makes it hard for us to even get motivated to want to learn our religion. But then again, that motivation comes only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So uh, the best we can do is make dua. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Afnan. This is important to hear from our youth, and it is a challenge that we're facing, and especially our youth. But inshallah, we're going to learn how to address some of these issues in a way that would really bring um, joy and peace to our hearts rather than take away. Dr. Yamina, we have Sister Tasniya, Sister Sarah, and Sister Asma, and Sister Amina. So please go ahead, everybody, now, and then we will focus some time to listen to Dr. Yamina. Sister Tasniya, would you like to say your comment, please?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Alaikum assalam.
So I guess I'll just read out what I had written, and I'll kind of add on to my thoughts. So it's kind of I think everyone is resonating the things that. So I think we, and I speak mostly for myself, like we are afraid like of our weaknesses, our neediness. It's really easy to be on autopilot, and I think shifting from this state of like autopilot, which to me is ghafla, to this state of consciousness, like it takes a lot of effort. And maybe somewhere in that there is this lack of trust. And I don't know where exactly or how that lack of trust maybe originated, whether it was my upbringing, messages from society. I really liked what the sister previously had said, where even like we're in a society where like God is totally out of the picture, and we elevate our ego, our own needs. It's all about us. So, you know, I think when we have done that, we've kind of created this picture of like a perfect version of ourselves. So even if we recognize or acknowledge that we have weaknesses or that we do things in a certain way that is harmful, we've kind of given ourselves the excuse all the time to be like, oh, but no, it's okay because I'm like this because of X, Y, and Z, because this is what happened to me. Again, you know, the ego, making yourself feel better for, you know, forgetting. And I think, you know, to really go down that path of like, why do I forget? It's opening this box of like vulnerabilities that, you know, with one box, you open all these other boxes. And I think that is, at least for me, like it's a very, very heavy journey, you know, to to take all the time, because then you realize like, oh wow, I'm just really like a very needy, a very broken individual. And I think to admit that is really, really hard. So I think the default is like, okay, you know what, I don't want to deal with this, because it, you know, that pain, or that, whether it's that anxiety that all of these feelings create. So we just go back on autopilot. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Thank you. Just like a little care.
Thank you, Sister Tasniya.
I have a question for her name Amina. You know, the sister who asked the question about what do we forget. I forgot her name. I'm so sorry.
Dr. Yamina.
Dr. Yamina. So I have a question for her. There was a long time ago when I was in middle school, I have this wonderful teacher who used to teach us Islam. She teaches Islamic education, and I since I was little, I was always the curious type about God, like why we here, what's the purpose, why do I need to worship God, like he's too powerful, he doesn't even need me to worship him, like what's the point, and all of these questions. And I remember asking her this, and it said like, so why did he created us and why are we here? And she said he created man. This is what her answer is. He created man because Allah wants to be known to his ummah, and that's why he wishes to create us for that purpose. And also he said he has everything except one thing. He never need anything, doesn't know what it means to be poor or need. So he wants to learn it from us, from having nothing. So that really, I don't know if I understood it the way she wanted me to understood it. So she probably meant it differently, but at that time I was young, so I just took it this way. But still, it just registered in my mind, and repeating it myself. It's like, so this is the reason it was created, because God wants to be known and wants to learn about poverty and needs from humans, which doesn't make, it's not, I don't know, it's just like, it's strange. So that's why I wanted to ask her, since mashallah she have her education, she have a PhD. So I always love to learn from people who have more experience than I am and more knowledge.
This is what we will unpack, Sister Asmaa Abbadi. We're going to unpack these questions. Thank you for your question, because we're going to discuss this in the next 9, starting today, for 8 more sessions, inshallah. Let us hear from Sister Sarah and Amina. And then if anybody else, and the Sister Iman also had a comment in the chat box. Sister Iman, either share it, or Sister Zahra can keep if you don't mind, Sister Zahra, to keep a tab on the chat box. But please, Sister Sarah, go ahead, and then following Sister Sarah will be Sister Amina Stevens.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I guess to sort of quickly, briefly summarize the beautiful sharing from Dr. Sawsan, mashallah, that mentioned that this beautiful time that we're in, like Dr. Yamina said, it's really the most important time of the year, because we're really given such a wonderful opportunity to reach something really wonderful. I think the most important thing to remember is that the example of Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam came, his example only just highlights what sort of training is necessary in order to reach that level of testimony of faith, and that discipline that Dr. Yamina is constantly emphasizing, as far as doing serious introspective reflections and meditations on water, on soil, on sun, on everything that we see, is exactly what Ibrahim alayhi salam went
Erdal
through.
kahve yaptım canım.
And we can only bring ilah, like Sawsan mentioned something so beautiful, that once we learn this relationship between us and Rabb, like there's a being that's taking care of the universe and taking care of us through this water, through this, then we can bring that, like Dr. Yamina always says, into our relationships with people, into our relationships with the other. But we can't even go there until we really do this introspective work. And I think we forget because we've never done the training. And like Sister Iman kept it very real, like we don't prioritize our eternal well-being and our current peace as something that's a priority. And until we realize that that is the top priority, the only priority to save yourselves, and then you can save everybody else from hellfire, then that's then that's that, where nobody will be saved. So I just wanted to highlight that the tarbiyah, this training that the companions went through, I remember vaguely hearing like 13 years of training before scripture, even before like prayer and rituals even came. But we never went through that training because nobody ever taught us this type of tarbiyah. So now that, we have Dr. Yamina, and we have Receiving Noor, and we have Islam from Within, and we have different venues that really focus on this internal work, we really have to just dedicate to the discipline the same way, like Dr. Ali would say, that we would dedicate to studying to get a degree. Like everybody, we all learned how to study and sit for hours to study for an exam, but we won't do that type of introspection for our eternal life. And we just need to keep it real with ourselves and see where we're lacking and how we can set the alarms, do the meditations, and really sit down and reflect, whether it's journaling or actually do the work. And that's all. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you, Sister Sarah. Sister Amina Stevens.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, Sister Amina.
Thank you, shukran. So it seems that if shirk takes us away from the remembrance of God, then the remedy is to awaken the heart of remembrance, not the mind so much, but the heart of remembrance, so that that becomes something that, like a seed that's watered within us. I have a background in trauma work. And what I know is our nervous systems, our older nervous systems, it's not the place to get into a discussion about that, but they're wired for survival. And so sometimes our desire to have things just as they are, to remain in our comfort zone, to not want to deal with things, is almost a survival response. And what we're just looking for is tools. Aha, all right, I have all these stories coming up. People were very open-heartedly sharing. Sometimes they have guilt and what they're labeling as negative feelings come up. And I like to have a different perspective that I like to share. Instead of thinking of them as negative, there's a wonderful saying that's what seems to be in the way is the way. Does that make sense? What's in the way? So my sense of feeling guilty or not liking something about myself, that becomes an open door. And if I can sit with that part of myself, I often give the example, if we had a cranky child or an angry child or a grumpy, sad child, we wouldn't tell that child, go there. And when you're feeling better, come back in. I'd let that child sit next to me. I wish I knew that when I was parenting as a younger woman, but I understand now, yes, just let that part sit next to me. And it's about that allowing and acceptance. And when I'm able to be with those unloved parts or part of myself, somehow there's a resistance that is released. There is an opening. And this is not something that's just, well, it's good to name things and work with the mind. But so much of this work, I believe, has to do with feeling this in our being, in our hearts and our bodies. what we label as our imperfections, or I wrote things down as our imperfections, or our unloved parts of ourself, are really, I think, divine imperfections. The things in the way become the way. And if I can sit with that peace and allow myself to feel it, then there's something that takes place. It's not something from the mind, it's something deeper. And oftentimes what that peace does for me is it evokes one of the divine names, one of the divine qualities. Oh, that peace just needs some quietness now, or some nurturing. And if I can allow myself to feel that in my body, when I work with people, I might say, where do you feel that in your body? It doesn't have to be the heart. What does it feel like? Is it cold? Is it warm? And if I can, for myself, just allow that feeling to spread, something begins to open. That for me, this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something that takes place within. And it's a process. Old saying, you can't push the river. So I can take baby steps. And for me, those are the baby steps. If I can give an example, I have a roommate. It's a funny thing. Am I so old that my roommate, who is 59, is like a younger brother? How did that happen? I got older. But I have this wonderful roommate, a young man at 59 from where I sit, and he's very kind and thoughtful. And the other day he said to me, and I know that he's been thinking about moving back to Minnesota where his family is. And he said, you know, I've been thinking about that. And I said, yeah, Rob, I know that. And he said, but I thought maybe I need to stay here and help support you. And I said, oh, no, that's not necessary. I'm fine. You need to do what you need to do. Not long after that, I went in the room and I was praying and I went, oh, I did it again. I skimmed over what he said. I acknowledged it, but I didn't allow myself to feel it deeply. And because I was sitting in the chair quietly, I allowed myself to really feel the heart of his words, that he was considering giving up something he wants to do in order to support me. And I'm not talking about financial support or we're good company for each other. We're good support. And I had tears in my eyes because I could really feel the heart of what he said. And then I knew the next thing I had to do was go and speak to him and tell him, Rob, hey, I need to talk to you. Those words were so beautiful, and I really didn't allow myself to take them in. And I just want to stand here and pause with you so that we can both really savor that goodness. So I believe what we're doing in this process of awakening the heart of remembrance is taking time to pause. It might be when we're driving. It might be in the middle of a conversation. It doesn't always have to be when we're in prayer. Where is that pause? We'll know it. And just to pause and say, what's happening here? Where do I feel it in the body? And not judging our fears or our guilt, all of that as something bad. It's a doorway. It's a doorway that's taking us into the grace of God. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you so much, Sister Amina. We have a lot to learn from what you said, and we've been exploring some of it, and I believe Sister Dr. Yamina is gonna, inshallah, touch on some of these points as well. Dr. Yamina, please go ahead. And then later we'll have Zahra update us on what's been happening with the chat.
Assalamu alaikum again. Thank you everyone for sharing. We'll get back to, if we have time, to the answers, but it was intention to have few minutes of contemplation, pausing. We were talking with Maha about giving it a name, and we can call it tafakkur. Some people said tadabbur. In my understanding, tafakkur and tadabbur come together, but tafakkur is when you start 101 at the very beginning, the first steps. It's a process of pausing and tafakkur. So the first steps are tafakkur and then tadabbur. Tafakkur is reflecting from the heart, as we are told in the Quran. There is no true reflection if the heart is not involved. When we are in a process of tafakkur, we are looking for some evidences for what we believe in. And so in this case, the answer to the forgetting is in between, or one aspect of it is seeing things as an ayah, and what reminds us of that or makes us forget that is how we perceive our own selves, as the self perceives itself as independent of its Rabb, or is aware, pausing and witnessing and savoring that nourishing, that sustaining. So tafakkur is reflecting the heart, reflecting on and considering the evidences. And tadabbur is later the heart considering the consequences, the meaning of this. Now later, then we can practice tadakkur. Tadakkur is when we remember in a systematic way. If there is nothing that I learned to reflect and to witness, what am I going to remember? After tadakkur, then comes the muraqaba. Muraqaba is something, it's a spiritual contemplation. It's a practice of awareness, of living with iman and ihsan more systematically. So it's observing our inner self. And at the very beginning of muraqaba is to realize that we are what we are not. What we think we are in ghafla is not who we truly are. And that's the process of letting go of our ghafla beliefs. For instance, identifying with our belongings, with our knowledge, with our position, with our physical entity, or with our thoughts, with our feelings. And it's a process of letting go, realizing that we are not this until we come face to face to what we are, and only then we can start really connecting to who our Rabb is. And it comes from, it's a name of God. So when we are making muraqaba, we are actually performing the name of Raqib, that observing, inner observing. And when we observe inwardly, it makes it easier to observe outwardly as well. So today we want to make it simple. We start with tafakkur. We want to close our eyes because it makes it easier to focus. It's very easy to do. We tend to be distracted, and there are so many things around us that distract us. So we close our eyes and we are going to just breathe slowly and focus on our breathing. Now, normally, if we never did any, we have not been trained, not cultivated any tarbiyah, then it seems like when I am breathing, I see myself inhaling air, exhaling air. And if I ask myself what's going on, it seems okay. Even if I haven't learned about it in biology science class, still it's air coming in, air coming out. Somehow air, I'm taking it for granted. Remember what I said about water? Without even intending it, I'm taking it for granted by default on autopilot, as it was said, that air is somehow coming in, doing something in my body, coming out. Somehow I'm also assuming that my body is cooperating, my body is doing something. Somehow I am assuming that I am breathing. Now we want to stop. What we want to do here is just breathe, and we want to ask questions that will put into question all these assumptions. They are false assumptions. And we want to realize that what's going on is not simple at all. When I am breathing in and out, I don't know what's going on. I am not the one doing the breathing. It is breathed into me. And what is very, very significant is that I am being sustained in life. I take it for granted. But when I'm breathing, what does it mean? If we check someone is breathing, it means he is alive. This is, I am witnessing now life coming into being through, in my body. And so stay with this. Life is coming into being. Just say this to yourself and observe. And you start feeling, oh, this is a miracle. Of course, you will say, but this is beyond. And that's what I think Sister Amina was saying, that this is, I can't comprehend what's going on. Yes, because it's not something to be comprehended with the mind. It is not what science tries to write down. It is the miracle of life. It is a miracle. And miracles are called ayah in the Quran. It is a miracle. And all I can feel is awe. And that awe, we want to cultivate it. This is something that I always say with the twice 20 minutes meditation, contemplation, is we want to stay with that awe. Later we can stay with other feelings, but here that, oh, this is a miracle. Life. I'm saying it's air coming in and out. It is life coming in. Whatever that means, it's not something to be deciphered by the mind. It is something that is going to be felt and experienced and tasted through the heart. It is something that we witness through the heart, through the soul. It is something that is there, and we just feel and oh, in a feeling of in being in prostration before this coming of life into me. So this is all we want to be at awe at the miracle of life happening right now through my breathing, our breathing. And so,
Dr. Yamina, you
yes.
said ask yourself a question or tell yourself a phrase. And is that phrase watching the miracle of life happening through the air we breathe in and out?
Yes.
Okay. And for how long? Because we're writing this in the notes in case somebody missed it, so they can.
I am making it 4 minutes. So right now, we just, all of us pause, close our eyes, Bismillah. And as we are breathing, this breathing that we take so much for granted is actually, it's not something that to be taken for granted. Because if I stop breathing, I won't be in this world anymore. My life is connected to this breathing. Life is being breathed into me. And it is not me who is breathing. I have no control over it. I am the recipient of this gift. Stay with these thoughts, and especially stay with the awe. Wait for that awe, to feel it, milk it, stay with it. That's what we want, to become familiar. Though all this tafakkur and things is to become familiar with a new way of perceiving the world. The new way is the way that is described in the Quran. It is the way that is in harmony with reality. Because the way we take for granted, if we try to analyze it, is full of contradictions, and no wonder we feel always in conflict, and we can't really gripe the harmony and the inner peace, or even if we do, we don't stay there for too long, and we forget again and again because we are not familiar with the way of the Quran, that everything is an ayah, everything is a miracle, and it is happening here and now. I say, where is the miracle? The miracle is here. This is not just breathing in and out, is one way of describing it, but there is another. That's the tip of the iceberg. The true iceberg inside is that something that is not of this world, something transcendent is happening here. Life that does not exist here, because every living being is like me, it is receiving. None of them is the source of life. This source of life that is transcendent, another realm is communicating with me. Something otherworldly is going on here. Something amazing is going on here. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. That was 4 minutes. When we slow down and pause, there is always barakah, blessing in time. An ayah came to my heart. وفي الأرض آيات للموقنين وفي أنفسكم أفلا تبصرون. And there are signs, that are ayat للموقنين, to those who have certainty, and as well as in your own selves. أفلا تبصرون. Can you not see?
Dr. Yamina, please turn back your camera.
Sorry. So the ayah is وَفِي الْأَرْضِ آيَاتٌ لِلْمُوقِنِينَ. There are signs and ayat on the earth for those who have certainty as well, and there are signs for in your own selves. Can you not see? And these signs are important. The more we become aware and certain that everything is an ayah, it means the more we reflect on the relationship between a cause and an effect and see that the relationship is not horizontal but vertical, and that the relationship points to the beautiful names of God. Then when we go to school and science, because science is offers only a materialistic interpretation of what's going on, it means there is no God, no causer of causes, and because we have to speak a language of agency, then the agent becomes the thing themselves. So it is full shirk. Light is coming, water is giving life. We become that interpretation, that narrative won't take us to doubt. Why? Because now we have been established, we are anchored in our belief in God. We know how things are ayat. We do perceive them in ayat. It's not a wishful thinking or an imitating someone else who told us something. It is something that we witnessed, we observed, we know, we've seen it. أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. Can you not see that everything is an ayah? Yes, I see that water cannot give life to the plant because it does not have life from the beginning. It doesn't have any attribute needed to be an agent of giving life. And so when science tells me that, it does not bring doubt into, it does not make me question my belief, because my belief is a grounded belief. It is not an imitative claim. Believing in God is not simply to not deny his existence. It is to know him with his beautiful names that we observed and experienced in the world. So nothing can make me doubt that belief anymore. It is my reality. Once we have this grounding in everything is an ayah, it becomes easy to come back. If everything is being sustained and created, water is not giving life because it itself is being created together with the giving of life. So God, we are told, وَجَعَلْنَا, and we make everything alive by means of water. So that's how I know that God is the giver of life. Because if water itself is the giver of life, then where did I get the idea? Why do I need God anyway in the picture? So now this is happening simultaneously with myself, because always the ayat in the world and within our own selves in the Quran are mentioned together. Because the ayat in the world, I will easily forget about that reality if I can't see the ayat within me. If it is me, if I think, if I imagine in my delusion, in my ghafla, that it is me who is breathing, then certainly it is air that is coming in and working in my body. But when I realize that air can do it, then I say, how about me? I have no control over my breathing, over my body. How it grows, I'm just a recipient of creativity, of this gift. How I see, how I hear, I just find myself using and benefiting from those gifts. Now, I won't forget. The more I practice this, the more I won't forget. If I learn this and I accept it, I don't deny it, but I don't practice it on a daily level, then it doesn't become my new way of being, my new habit. As Imam Nursi rahimahullah says, make your worship into your new habit. Transforms your habit into worship. Otherwise, our habits of ghafla, if I get stuck there, then nothing will change. And I will forget, not because I will forget, because that will be my default way of seeing things. In my seeing things, there is no God, because if I perceive myself as independent of my sustainer, then I will see everything independent of their sustainer. And then it will take a huge effort to again say, oh yes, it was God. And then we wait for a moment of crisis, of a special time in order to remember that. But we don't need to remember that, to wait for moments of crisis. In the Quran, we are invited to do it here and now. And someone said we need the motivation to change. What we are talking about is comparing in some ways the two ways of being in disconnection with our sustainer and with the reality, and living in the delusion of being independent and separate, which is totally not true, or living with the awareness that I am totally dependent on someone else's creativity and care, and I'm benefiting from that care here and now, and I always have someone to fall on, to trust, to believe in, to reach out, not only in times of crisis, all the time. So that fear and that survival mode is suddenly, we relax, because now we have someone who is taking care of me. I can take care of my seeing. My breathing means my life. Everything else comes after it. So there comes now, when there is that connection, when I'm aware of my connection, it's time to thrive. It's time to get ready for akhirah. It's time to realize that all my activities in this world are means and doors to know him and to prepare for eternal life. And so it is, I'm not looking for only peace in this life or joy in this life, but peace and joy in this life and in the hereafter. Because that peace and joy, as we are told in the Quran, is only when we connect to the source of everything, with God. So it becomes, I hear many people say, what is important is first your relationship with yourself. No, what is important is first our relationship with God. our relationship with God entails that we become aware of our relationship with ourselves. True, but at the center of everything is my relationship with God. Why? Because God means everything. Everything that we long for, everything that we are looking for is with Him. The keys of everything is with Him. So once we find God, we find everything. That is what Tawheed is about. So the more we become aware of this, at least theoretically in the beginning, the more there will be this motivation to start changing. And that change starts step by step. And it starts with that tafakkur. The tafakkur is going to be done not only in the ayat, in the world, but also within ourselves. They have to go in together, parallel. Because if I keep saying everything is an ayah outside, but I'm unwilling to let go of my false belief, my false claims about who I am the one who breathes, I'm the one who thinks, I'm the one who knows. It's not true. When I accept that that humility, this is not going to go go and speak to people. It's about between me and my sustainer, my creator, my maker. When I prostrate before Him, it means I accept this reality. Then that's when everything starts changing. And I need to invest in this new way of perceiving myself, perceiving the world, relating to everything around. I mean, we, as someone said, we invest in everything new. How come we don't invest in something like, even if there is 1% probability that this has the key to not only fulfilling the purpose of this life, but this purpose of this life looks to akhirah, to eternity, it's worth, at least give it like 1 year. Give it what we give, like how many years for a job, and sometimes we don't like the job and we change it, or we don't use that degree at all. So how come use like sincerely for a year and then say, I tried it and it doesn't work. But like on a daily level, we have to start with this tafakkur, tadabbur, tadakkur, as we are taught in the Quran, step by step. And it's not like we are going to accept something that doesn't make sense to us. The fact that I am not the one breathing, is there anyone who says, no, I am the one doing it, it's under my control? It's a simple reality, but until we are taught it, we are not aware of it. And when we are not aware of it, as we are told in the Quran, there is no neutral position. When we are not connected with God, we are disconnected. And when we are disconnected, it means we have to make up the causer, the agent, because we are created with that. We have to have an agent. And the agent becomes myself and things.
Could you repeat that again, please? It's very important. When we're not connected with God, we're disconnected. Can you repeat that part?
When we are not connected, then we are not in a neutral space. We are disconnected. When we are disconnected, it means the agent, instead of being God, without meaning it, by default, it becomes me in my inner world and things. That's the path to shirk. That's the path of making things into idol, or making yourself into idol, as we are told also in the Quran. So all these things are interrelated. And when I become the agent and things become the agents, then I have to live in a survival mode because there is fear, because deep down I know that I can't rely on myself and I can't rely on anything else.
This is very important. This is the gist of Tawheed, the ABCs of Tawheed, and we cannot skim through that. This is the most important block that we cannot build anything else if this is wobbly. So we need to be firm and on such a foundation and establishment.
And also our journey, inner journey to healing and thriving also depends on this.
Dr. Yamina, do you want to see if people have questions about what you just said? Because this is utterly essential. Nothing else, I mean, we cannot proceed if this is unclear, because this is a huge claim. I mean, Dr. Yamina is saying there is no neutral ground. If we're not connected, if we are not connected to God, we are disconnected, and that path leads us to all kinds of problematic assumptions and presumptions and perceptions, including finding causes and living in a survival mode and so forth. So would you say this is a good point to...
Yeah, we can hear, and then it will be time for Maghrib here, inshallah.
Okay.
And stop there, and we can carry on.
Yes, we are meeting tomorrow. This is we have 8 more days, inshallah, and we want to take our time and look at some of these concepts in depth. So please go ahead. If people have questions, please go ahead. And if people want to read the comments, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say something, Maha, if possible. Just to kind of confirm, as you said, this last statement, this is really, really, as you said, a very, very important thing. And I guess maybe this is a core point to keep reflecting on. So are we connected or disconnected? Because as you said, there is no gray line in between. It's either yes or no. And to me, then, to connect to something or someone means I need to know that someone or something. I cannot connect without knowing.
True.
And that means, as Yamina has said, that the value then of investing to know God becomes to me then a priority if I need to be connected. And then knowing him will tell me, what is my connection look like? Is it a clear connection, interrupted by what, and etc.? And then to know someone, there is a chance of loving that someone. And then that will tell me how much more would I connect with a lover versus an unknown entity. And I'm just going to stop at this.
That's very true, Dr. Sawsan. Thank you. So this is your chance to ask questions and to make comments.
Lala, this is Amina.
Yes.
It's okay for me to speak.
Please do.
So forgive my poor Arabic here, but I remember Sister Yamina speaking about Tawheed, and she said it was a noun verb. This is some time ago. Am I right with that? Is my Arabic grammar right?
Yes, yes.
That it's a noun verb,
Yes.
so that it means that we're in process, unification, rather than having to be, static isn't quite the word I want, but there. It's life is a process. And I wanted to add just a little bit to what you were saying, just from this focus of the nervous system. When we're able to have this felt sense in the body, when we're going from our survival nervous systems, there's two. When we have those moments of that felt sense, we are actually reprogramming the nervous system. And we're allowing ourselves to move into something called the ventral vagus nervous system. It's our younger one, right? Not so much about self-preservation, but in that nervous system, that is where we are able to have self-connection and connection, or so we have self-regulation or connection, and we can also have connection or co-regulation with others. So moving away from those therapy-like words, think of holding a newborn infant, right? We've seen that. If we haven't done that, and maybe we've experienced that, and the look in that child's eyes when they look up at you, there's often that complete trust and openness. And when that's taking place, that part of that infant's nervous system, and I almost don't like bringing it into science, though it's wonderful to have that verification. I tend to be a little more touchy-feely, but have this background here. But that baby's being, not just their nervous system, their being is experiencing in that moment self-regulation, self-connection, and connection with another person. The baby's not saying, oh, my nervous system is doing this. We don't need to know that. It's a felt sense. And in our busy lives and whatever trauma or experiences we've had in the past, sometimes we've fallen away from that nervous system. And so what we're doing in this process of that noun verb tawhid, we're in process. It's a wonderful, the dunya is a wonderful madrasa. It's a wonderful school for education. And we are just, again, this idea of awakening the heart into that place of remembrance, awakening ourselves into this remembrance. And there's one other little piece is that sometimes when I'm sitting in quietness, my mind can be racing at speeds that probably can't even be tracked. And the best I can do, that's a good thing. There's an expression that sometimes it's called training the puppy. So if I find I'm getting caught in a thought, I can witness that. I can let myself witness myself seeing that thought, but then sometimes bring myself back to the moment the way we would with the puppy. Come on back and sit. All right, good boy, good girl, pet the puppy, right? Give them a little treat. So that's what we're doing is, I think that it's so important that we learn to have self-empathy and patience in this process. We're all beautiful human beings, and we're just here learning that self-empathy and patience, and these wonderful gatherings are a gift. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Amina. It's important, as you said, it's a process. Now, once the process starts, then all what you said applies. It means we are, at least the intention is to be connected. Even in the process, if I get disconnected, I won't be disconnected for forever, because I already have made the intention to start the journey of Tawheed. And so it's a choice. Once we make that choice, we can wander a little bit, we can go 3 steps ahead and then 2 steps backward or something, but we are, the istiqamah, the destination is clear, the intention is clear, and then all what you said apply. Now, I would call that still in the connected. Overall, the intention is connected at least. And so when we have that intention, lots of miracles happens. When we forget or get disconnected for any reason, many things will cooperate to help us get. And because we have the intention, we will perceive that. Now, the disconnected is when I am unaware of this journey, of this process. I'm not doing anything about it. Just by claiming that I am a Muslim or I believe in this or that, it does not make me a wayfarer in this journey. So that's why, even if things cooperate to want to pull me somewhere, sometimes we resist. Why are you pulling me? I don't want to go there. Because, as it was said earlier, the unknown feels uncomfortable. But when we make that choice and we make that intention to follow up, then if we will recognize when there is resistance, we will recognize and we will say, yes, even if it is unknown. I mean, it has to be unknown, otherwise I will just replicate the known from the past. So it makes sense. And I become open to the unknown. The first, one of the qualities of the God conscious is to believe in ghaib. Ghaib is what is not here, what is not perceived. It is unknown, unseen, usually translated as unseen, but ghaib is more than unseen. Unseen, unknown, beyond our perception.
Not to panic or to distrust it, not to be in a distrustful relationship with the unseen or the unknown.
So that intention and choice at the beginning will make the difference, inshallah.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina. I know it's Maghrib coming soon to the folks on the East Coast who are fasting. May Allah accept your fast. Sister Zahra will summarize some of the comments. We want to thank everyone who wrote a comment or who made a comment. I take responsibility for delaying our start today, but tomorrow, inshallah, we start again at 6. Hopefully, I won't have an electric outage that would delay. So we will, Zahra, if you're ready, please read some of the comments, and then Sister Yamina will say a dua, and we will continue this discussion tomorrow. We will have a new presenter, and we will continue exploring the ABCs of Tawheed, learning from the example of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, and opening ourselves to this connection, this profound, authentic connection with Allah. If you're ready, Sister Zahra, or anybody else wants to read comments, and Dr. Yamina will close us with dua, and we will end with Labayk.
Great, thank you. So I think a lot of the comments have been read. I'll just do a quick summarization of where it started. And apologies, I'm just kind of skimming over them. So we had some comments in response to Sister Amina's initial comment. You know, people kind of wrote some parts that really resonated with them. Tasniya pulled out the part where Sister Amina said, when I can be with those unloved parts with myself, somehow there is a resistance that is released, an opening. And Iman also kind of echoed some of that. And she mentioned that being able to pause and sit with these unloved parts requires bravery, and the importance of prioritizing our relationship with our Creator. And Sister Amina reminded us that she said, Allah loves us unconditionally, and we are simply learning to awaken. And there was a great reminder for me, because she added that our veils protect us, and with divine right timing, we are gradually open. Because I think I fall into the trap of saying, I need to fix everything in myself. And I get caught in the trap of forgetting that I am not the doer. And so I have to surrender that aspect too. So I appreciated that. And then we had some responses about the silent breathing work that we did. And Iman pointed out a quote that she thanked Dr. Amina for bringing out the point that life is being sustained, and how we sometimes fall into the trap of taking that for granted, and how Sarah mentioned how, you know, breathing in and watching how life is coming into her being is important. In the chat, people asked for those who like do this kind of meditation or breathing exercise for 20 minutes a day, how often do they do it? When do they do it? And someone mentioned that they do it in the morning. Another participant said they do it in the morning and the evening. I have a colleague who's been doing it for 17 years, and he actually does morning and evening, and he suggests before you get too sleepy. So for anyone who wants to try that. And I think that's kind of the gist of it. So I just wanted to, there's a great conversation going on in the chat and some really beautiful reminders throughout. Over to you.
Thank you, Sister Zahra, and thank you, Dr. Sawsan Abbadi, for your presentation, for your valuable presentation. Thank you, Dr. Yamina. Are you gonna see you tomorrow, inshallah, at 6? Dr. Yamina, are you gonna close us with dua? And then we'll follow with Labayk. I'll leave the Labayk chant. Labayk means Allah, here we come. This is a chant that is said from pilgrims in Hajj. They say it at the beginning of their journey, but the meaning of it is that we are answering the call of Allah. We're saying, here we come to Allah. So I would like to invite you to ask yourselves, what does it mean to be called by Allah, and how is our answer to Allah? In fact, in my personal experience, when I want to motivate myself to pray, when I feel a little lazy, I say Labayk. I say Labayk, Allahumma Labayk, to get myself up, to make wudu, and to pray and feel present.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وتب علينا يا تواب يا حكيم توبة نصوحا لنكون من الذين إذا فعلوا فاحشة أو ظلموا أنفسهم ذكروا الله فاستغفروا بذنوبهم ومن يغفر الذنوب إلا الله نستغفر الله العظيم الكريم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ونتوب إليه سبحانه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إلهي أنت ربي وأنا العبد، وأنت الخالق وأنا المخلوق، وأنت الرزاق وأنا المرزوق، وأنت المالك وأنا المملوك، وأنت العزيز وأنا الذليل، وأنت الغني وأنا الفقير، وأنت الحي وأنا الميت، وأنت الباقي وأنا الفاني، وأنت الكريم وأنا اللئيم، وأنت المحسن وأنا المسيء، وأنت الغفور وأنا المذنب، وأنت العظيم وأنا الحقير، وأنت القوي وأنا الضعيف، وأنت المعطي وأنا السائل، وأنت الأمين وأنا الخائف، وأنت الجواد وأنا المسكين، وأنت المجيب وأنا الداعي، وأنت الشافي وأنا المريض، فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وتجاوز عنا واشف أمراضنا يا الله. يا كافي يا رب، يا وافي يا رحيم، يا شافي يا كريم، يا معافي، فاعف عنا وعن آبائنا وأمهاتنا ورفقائنا وعن المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات، وفاعف عنا من كل ذنب وعافنا من كل داء وارض عنا وعنهم أبدا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين.
آمين آمين. جزاكم الله خير.
Thank you everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام.
Join us tomorrow, inshallah, at 6 Eastern Standard Time.
الحمد لله. اللهم لبيك لك لا شريك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك الملك لا شريك لك.